Welcome to the Fandom Podcast Network special presentation of Time Warp 1990, January, the movies and pop culture. Welcome to the Fandom Podcast Network special presentation of Time Warp, where we cover the movies and pop culture of an entire year. In these year's episodes of Time Warp, we will be covering the year of 1990, which of course includes its pop culture, which includes the movies, TV, music, and other notable news events. The 1990s movies, pop cultures, and events are all celebrating their 35th anniversary. Welcome to Time Warp 1990 here on the Fandom Podcast Network. And of course, I gotta get my friends in here on this because, here on Time Warp, we like to have a lot of adventures here on the Fandom Podcast Network, and I got to get these mofos here. They are my co-hosts of the Fandom Podcast Network. And of course, I'd like to welcome Mr. Kyle Wagner, co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network. What's going on, buddy?
Well, I need you to give me a minute to cook, Mr. Reitzel, because not only am I here on this podcast, I am here on this podcast injured as I had a root canal 3 hours ago. But Kevin, more importantly, I just have to say this. When I wake up in the morning and the alarm gives out a warning, I don't think I'll ever make it on time. By the time I grab my books and give myself a look, I'm at the corner just in time to see Kevin in the bus fly by, but it's all right because I'm saved by this podcast.
Nice reference to Saved by the Bell. And if you're wondering why Kyle did that, because if you are watching the video, we have a very 90s background, very Saved by the Bellish. So well done, Kyle. You're going to get a little slow cat for that. There you go. Well done.
All while injured. Thank you.
Suck it up, mister. All right. Next, we have to, of course, get in the queen of movie foo, my fellow co-host of Time Warp, Lacey. What is going on, Lacey? You ready for some 90s?
I feel like we think ahead, so we don't have to do anything now. that's like, I feel like that's the 90s. It's good. It's good. We can think backwards.
Let's have a short discussion about this, guys. So we've been covering the 80s for a while now, since 1981, back in 2021, and we've been doing 81, 82, 83, 84, because as it was matching up with the 40th anniversary of the years that we were, of course, recording those in. And there's a lot of great movies and events that happen and TV shows. But Kyle, you came to me because I was just like, what are we going to do? We've already done 1985, but those were in the audio days. We didn't do it on YouTube. And you came to me with 1990. We wanted to return to the 90s. Tell me why.
Have you seen the list of the movies in 1990?
I sure have. I've wrote all the notes.
It is 1990 is a phenomenal year at the movies. It's the 25th anniversary, 35th anniversary of all these films. I'm sold. Plus, it felt like it was time to move a decade. We've been focusing a lot on the 80s, and we love the 80s here at the Fandom Podcast Network. We get our Gunther, our Ready Player One on, but you know what? We needed to give the 90s some love. And what better way than a year that transitions between really the end of the 80s era and into the era of the 1990s?
Well, what's interesting, guys, is for us, of course, we're all Gen X. And so we were born in the 70s, and we were kids in the 70s, and we started growing up in the 80s and becoming teenagers. The 90s was where we really kind of started not only getting older and becoming adults, but I really feel like pop culture in general and entertainment was really kind of starting to define us. Of course, we would always look back at the 80s with a lot of fondness because of growing up as kids and being in that era. But 90s things started to kind of change for us, and we were becoming adults, and we're also becoming a little bit smarter and more knowledgeable about our entertainment. Wouldn't you say, Lacey?
I think so. I think that you hit a certain age, and I think it kind of coincides with getting that first job. Because as Gen Xers, we were very much told by our parents that you were going to have a job, and you can start now or you can start later, but you must have a job. Like you do jobs.
Yep.
And so I think that because my first job was in a movie theater, I think that really kind of set the tone. I was 15 years old working the front.
So the movie theater was your first job. My first job was a Radio Shack.
Nice.
Kyle, what was your first job?
My first job was at a grocery store in high school, but there was two key components to that. One, because of Alaska, you couldn't work a register until you're the age of 18 if you worked in a grocery store because it's a union. However, they installed a video rental counter, and nobody knew how to set up the computers except yours truly, which when they came to me, I looked at them and said, fine, I will do this. But when I turn 18, literally my birthday, I need to be moved to this section. And sure enough, they held that up, and I worked at that through high school. And then about 1994, then I started working at the comic shop up in Fairbanks, Alaska. And that was it. That was a big change, but that was a lot of fun too. So.
All right. So guys, now, first of all, if you're listening to this podcast, make sure you check out the video on YouTube. Give us a like and a subscribe because we got some fun. As always, we've got some fun visual aids to share. Not to mention our cool 90s Saved by the Bell background we got going on here. But we're not ready to leave 1984 yet. And I say 1984 because that was the last thing that we talked about last year. Because in 2024, all 84 events, of course, we're celebrating its 40th anniversary. And now we are in 2025 talking about 1990. But we're not ready to leave yet because, Lacey, you did go back and get a chance to watch a couple of 84 films that we talked about recently. And one being City Heat, starring Clint Eastwood and Burt Reynolds. And you are holding up a Blu-ray copy right there. Give me your quick thoughts on City Heat. What'd you think?
It was good. It was a nice kind of buddy cop, but not really buddies. It was like a not buddy cop movie. Kind of a, I feel like the wardrobe's maybe the most exciting thing about it. Eastwood is Eastwood, Reynolds is Reynolds. You know what the movie just by thinking that scenario through.
Did you catch the thing that I noticed watching that movie, that theater that there was that shootout at or whatever was? I thought that was the same theater backlot that was done in Johnny Dangerously.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Same time, same era as well. So yeah, okay.
Right.
So what were your thoughts on the Cotton Club? Because you had some comments to say about it before actually seeing it. You didn't seem very interested in it because of the setting of it. But what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. So originally, I got the encore edition of the Cotton Club, which is
the Blu-ray. Gotcha.
Well, that's where Francis Ford Coppola went back after the fact, about 15 or 20 years later, and added in about 40 minutes to the film. So I don't know.
Holy crap.
Yeah. So, and it's got a lot of extra, performances and stuff in it. I think that the reason I didn't find this interesting is because the picture you're showing is the picture I had seen on like IMDb. The Cotton Club was a place where there was some racial inequality, we'll just say that. And so I felt like the cover of this being all white people seemed like a movie. I don't want to watch a movie about that because that doesn't seem to represent the time. But I got this version, and as you can see, Gregory Hines is front and center, and I felt like, well, maybe I'll give it a shot. It's so good. It was really well done. I'm surprised.
There's a lot of dancing, a lot of entertainment.
There were some.
They had an actor play Cab Calloway and stuff.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes, and there was some language that you can't get away with today that I dislike.
James Remar was the standout character for me in that movie. I loved him in that movie as the gangster. Who was your standout character before we move on?
I'm gonna go with Gregory Hines and his brother. Yeah. They're brothers in real life. And also, if you get a chance, there's a interview on this where they do a 20 minutes with the elder Hines and
gotcha. Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for the update. We appreciate your thoroughness. That's why you're the queen of movie foo.
Well, I didn't give it a chance, and I felt like after I heard you guys talking about it, I was like, well, maybe I need to give it a chance. So I don't want to be that person that's just like, no, I don't want to see it because I don't like it because I didn't know.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you did. And, it's an interesting movie. It's weird how it's kind of become a forgotten one as well. So that's why we love Time Warp, because we get to not only revisit these ourselves or watch them for the first time ourselves if we can, but we also get to share that information with our audience. But guys, we are discussing the movies of 1990 and of course the TV shows and other things around 1990. But we do have some things that have dropped recently. And coming up here on the Fandom Podcast Network, we did, of course, the whole year of 1984 last year, guys. And we also did, of course, the Time Warp NFL Raiders players who acted in movies and TV. And we also did a couple years ago, we had a great Buffy retrospective as well. But the 1984 was where it was at, guys. We did full 12 months of all of these 84 classic films, and that was a great, great run. But we are now visiting the movies and events of 1990. And so I want, first of all, thank you guys all for joining us. But before, we do this, let's take a step back in time to 1990. As we always do, we got to fuel up that DeLorean with the flux capacitor, slingshot around the sun aboard that captured Klingon bird of prey. Take a step in that blue police box or phone booth. Step into that quantum leap accelerator, or my favorite, take a dip in that hot tub time machine. Oh, wait a minute. Do we have any Chernobyl, Kyle? Got to make sure we have the Chernobyl.
Yeah, absolutely. We either that or Mr. Fusion.
There we go. Time travel back to 1990, where we're going to remind you of what's happening in pop culture, sports, politics, television, of course, the movies during 1990. All right. What's happening in 1990s, guys? Well, we got some world news here, first of all, to kind of set you back in the early 90s here. January, we're fresh into 1990. We're getting out of the 80s, and we had some stuff happening. First of all, United States invasion of Panama happens. General Manuel Noriega is disposed as leader of Panama and surrenders to the American forces. I think he was hiding up there for a while, and they played a lot of heavy metal music to annoy him before they finally got him, if I remember correctly. January 29th, the trial of Joseph Hazelwood, former skipper of the Exxon Valdez, begins in Anchorage, Alaska. He's accused of negligence that resulted in America's second worst oil spill to date. Kyle, we touched on this somewhere sometime, and you do remember this all because you grew up in Alaska.
Yes, I had to live all through this idiot drunk at the wheel, destroying Prince William Sound. A
lot of wildlife was destroyed too, unfortunately.
Oh, so much.
Yeah.
That area's just now starting to get back to normal, and of course then they get it thrown in my face during Waterworld.
Yeah.
I always remember the picture of the duck covered in oil and the Dawn dish soap. There was so much. Apparently, Dawn. I don't know the parent company. Maybe it was Johnson Johnson. I can't remember the parent company, but they donated like hundreds of thousands of gallons of Dawn dish soap to save the wild.
So many volunteers tirelessly were helping with this and stuff. And what's interesting about that too is I think I brought that up, Kyle, during the hair metal podcast where we picked our super group of hair metal artists from 1989 who we would put together, and then we had to choose like a charity event or a concert. And I think mine was to help the people and the volunteers that had helped clean that up, because that happened earlier that year in 89, if I remember correctly. So yeah. How things all tie together, Kyle, because you did comment on that back then. I do remember that.
Yeah.
January 31st, the first McDonald's in Moscow, Russia opens 8 months after construction began, May 3rd, 1989. 8 months later, the first McDonald's in mainland China is opened in Shenzhen.
Yeah, I just want to say supersize that borscht.
Yeah.
Shenzhen,
yes. And on the last piece of big note here, of course, President of the United States, George H.W. Bush, gives his first State of the Union address and proposes that the U.S. and the Soviet Union make deep cuts to their military forces in Europe. All right. Let's get into some toys and stuff. We kind of like that stuff. There we go. Not starting the show over. 1990 toys, techs, and products. And of course, as the Joker said in 89 Batman, where does he get all of those wonderful toys? Toys. All right.
Well, he probably got them at Toys R Us because it still existed in the 1990s.
I know. We were all there. Well, we are combining some toys and tech together. And the first toy that we've had here is My Pretty Ballerina. My Pretty Ballerina was a beautiful made doll made by Tycho that twirled around in a circle and walked around on her tippy toes along with her cassette and dancer pole. That came with each doll. Though she was stunning in her pink little tutu and fun to play with, she was not a sleep with at night type of doll. So there you go. Now, we had a lot of tech here, guys. Remember the Casio FX 603P calculator? Oh, man, you were on top of Nerd Mountain when you had one of these here, guys. It was a programmable calculator manufactured by Casio in 1990. It was the successor model to the Casio FX 602P, since it was only released in a limited number of countries in small quantities. It is now accessibly a rare item which commands high prices when sold. The FX 603P featured a 2-line dot matrix display with 16 characters each as main display, an additional 4-digit 7-segment display used to display the program setup when entering or debugging programs of 20 status indicators. Kyle, did you have this?
I did not have that particular model, but everybody I knew had a Casio at some point, like this one.
Well, the watch was the really popular ones too. So yeah.
I remember as a kid, we had to take, if you had a watch, the teachers would go around and take your watches away and say, you won't have a calculator in your pocket anytime you need one. So you need to learn how to do this by hand. Needless to say,
I'm pretty sure this Casio calculator was outlawed as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the last thing we have here, by the way, this is interesting. The Apple Extended Keyboard. Oh my God, it's got more buttons. Price in the US was $163 for this bad boy. The Apple Extended Keyboard is a computer keyboard that was first sold separately alongside the Macintosh 2 and SE starting in 1987. It was replaced in 1990 by the Apple Extended Keyboard 2, which was repackaged with Apple Professional desktops starting with the Macintosh 2SI. Both versions were very similar, differing primarily with the addition of adjustable height legs. Oh, that was a big deal. In the AEK2 and other minor changes. Both used Apple Desktop bus ADB to connect to the host computer with ports on either side to allow daisy chaining or other input device, typically a computer mouse or trackball.
Did you say $163?
163. And what is Kyle holding up there? Kyle, what is that?
This would be my MacBook Pro Magic Keyboard version 2023.
Is that the updated version? Is that
basically,
the 35th?
Yes.
Is that the 35th edition?
Basically, yes.
Nice.
That's cool. That's wireless.
It seems to be missing some cords, though. I don't know what's up with that.
It's Bluetooth, wireless. Yeah. Does it scratch your butt?
Yeah, Kevin, I would just want to bring up a point too, because we were talking about toys of 1990. 1990 was really kind of the swing year where action figures really started disappearing off the shelves compared to what we had in the 90s, because by this point we're done with G.I. Joe and Transformers. We're not getting new lines of those two mainstay figures, and like He-Man was done. A lot of stuff was done by 1990. It was kind of the end of the era of the action.
It was still like Turtles, and then Power Rangers came. And
so, Power Rangers became the big thing about 93, but otherwise, I mean, but the traditional action figures were just not out there like they used to be.
Yeah.
Just a reference, $163 in 1990 is basically $400 today.
Ouch! There you go. Look at that bad boy.
I didn't pay $400 for my keyboard, so inflation didn't affect that so much.
All right, we have some celebrity birthdays in 1990. This is where it starts to make us feel a little old, and I'll be perfectly blunt with you guys. Some of these people I have no idea who they are, but I'm sure maybe some listeners and viewers are. So we have Natalie Palamides, actress for the Powerpuff Girls, Star versus the Force of Evil. I'm assuming maybe that's a voice actress.
Yeah, voice actress, yes.
Cameron Grimes, actress for Young and the Restless. I do know who this is. Liam Hemsworth, the other Hemsworth brother, Australian actor, of course, in Neighbors, The Elephant Princess, and Hunger Games. I know this guy, Grant Gustin, actor in Glee, and of course, The Flash. Chris Warren, actor for High School Musical. Christopher Massey, actor for Zoe 101. Mackenzie Porter, Canadian actress for Dino Sapien, Hell on Wheels, and Travelers. And we also have Jake Thomas, actor for Lizzie McGuire and The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, and of course, Corey in the House. I know a few of these guys, don't know them all.
Obviously, Grant Gustin is a big one with his Flash, and Liam Hemsworth. I mean, the other Hemsworth brother, but then again, he is taking over for Henry Cavill as the Watcher. So
As the what?
as the Watcher on Netflix.
Witcher.
The Witcher.
Witcher.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Witcher. That'll be an interesting casting. Okay. We also have some people that, of course, left us in memorandum. 1990. We have a few to mention here. Alan Hale Jr., January 2nd, passed away. We all, of course, know him as the skipper on Gilligan's Island. And didn't we just talk about him on
Dangerously.
Johnny Dangerously? Yes, that's right.
The watch captain, yeah.
We also had Northern Calloway, actor. He played David on Sesame Street. Rusty Hamer, former child actor for Make Room for Daddy. And Barbara Stanwyck passed away at 82. Actress, of course, The Barbara Stanwyck Show, The Big Valley, and plenty of other movies as well. So now, next we have, those are the deaths, sorry. We have some 1990 January music news. And we have a few here. I do remember this, guys. We have Sinead O'Connor. January 8th, Irish singer Sinead O'Connor releases her famous single, Nothing Compares to You. Of course, written by Prince, originally written and recorded by Prince, which was a worldwide success for her, became one of the best-selling singles in the world in 1990 and topped the charts in many countries, including the United States and the United Kingdom. I remember the video just showing her face singing this song. That was pretty much it, if I remember correctly. Right, guys? If I remember correctly?
Yeah, that was pretty much it. It was one of those things. It was such a phenomenal song. A lot of people just forget about the rest of the album because that song, I mean, really, that's the song that defines her.
Yeah, she killed it too.
Wasn't this the song that she was singing on Saturday Night Live when she ripped up the picture of the Pope and got excommunicated and all that kind of stuff?
I don't know if this was that year or not. I'll have to look into that. I think she came on a little bit later, but it might have been one of the songs that she did. But I think she did another song, and then that was it, if I remember correctly. So,
yeah, I don't think it was after Nothing Compares to You.
The other news of note was a very popular long-running series on MTV, and we got the first episode, January 21st. MTV's Unplugged is broadcast for the first time on cable television with the British band Squeeze. I was a loyal watcher of this series on MTV when they were still playing videos. Kyle,
what do you think? Which episode of Unplugged was the one that really made Unplugged mainstream? Was it Nirvana or was it Eric Clapton?
They're right around that same time, Kyle. Those are probably the most memorable ones. You know, I remember some of my favorite hair metal bands went on there as well. But you know, Kiss did it, and I think Kiss had everyone back for that too, like former members, old members as well. But I would have to say the Nirvana and that one Eric Clapton one are probably the most memorable ones. And what's weird about the Nirvana one is they did not play Smells Like Teen Spirit either, which is weird. Yeah. Okay, guys, we're sticking with music because this is the Billboard Top 100, the year in music for 1990. And as we like to do, since we're, of course, doing an episode a month for this entire year, we like to pick a few at a time until we get to number one. And we start off with 100 through 93. Okay, guys, first of all, full disclosure here. A lot of these I have no idea. I don't remember. I was kind of in a certain zone of music at this time. There were certain pop songs that you just could not ignore because they were out there and everywhere. But some of these that are near the back end of the list, I just don't know. And Lacey, don't feel bad. I know this isn't your strong point. But there are probably some younger viewers and listeners that will go, I remember those songs. Well, let's see if you do. We're going to do number 100 through 93. And those are 100 was Tic Tac Toe by Kuiper. 99 was Menitarosa by Mellow Man Ace. 98 was Thieves in the Temple by Prince. Number 97 was Swing the Mood by Jive Bunny and the Master Mixers. Number 96 was Without You, Motley Crue. I know that one. 95 was Whole Wide World by Amia Lorraine. This one I do know. 94, Just a Friend by Biz Markie. 93, Jerk Out by The Time. I only know two of these. Prince I know, but I don't remember that song at all. Does anyone remember any of these?
For the first time ever, I know all of them. I'm kidding.
Why?
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I will say that I feel like the Whole Wide World one, I think it's supposed to be Amy, like Amy. Just because you know how everybody was like messing with the spelling.
Oh
of
yeah. Amy Lorraine, you were funny with your name. I got you. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing. I don't think I know any. Well, I know the time. I actually got to spend time on stage with Morris Day and the Time when they sang for New Year's Eve at the Peach Drop one year.
I think you mentioned that during the discussion of Purple Rain when we were talking about that.
Possibly.
Yeah.
It's
1984. I remember.
Wait,
Kyle, you wanted to say something.
Well, first of all, to quote the great Jason Mewes, as far as Lacey goes, Morris Day and the Mother Effin' Time, the greatest band of all time.
Yes.
Correct.
But as far as the music, all I gotta say is you got what I need. But you say he's just a friend, and you say he's just a friend. Bismarck, you just a friend.
Oh baby, you guy got what I need. The guy that could get away with singing out of tune very badly. It was great.
I just want to know who Jive Bunny and the Master Mixers are. Like, I feel like I need to look that up.
Well, that's why they're at the bottom of the list. So, all right. What do you say we talk about some TV? One of the things we love to, of course, look back on is the time in television. We do have some television shows of 1990 that we're going to talk about. And we do have some notable news in 1990, guys. January 2nd, All My Children broadcast its 20th anniversary special on ABC. Joe and Ruth Martin sit down with Erica Kane, her mother Mona, and Phoebe Wallingford as they go through scrapbook pictures, which seg into memorable clips from the series' past 20 years. Still going on, I think.
Well, and at this point, Susan Lucci still hadn't gotten an Emmy for All My Children.
Yes, it's true. Yes. January 8th, Deborah Norville makes her debut as co-anchor on NBC's Today Show, succeeding Jane Pauley alongside Bryant Gumbel. And on January 10th, Time Warner is formed. And January 13th, Married with Children star Ed O'Neill guest hosts Saturday Night Live, becoming the first star of a Fox television program to host the NBC sketch comedy series, because it was 2 years in. It started in 1988. Kyle?
I just want to go back to January 10th, Time Warner. If we actually did have the Time Warp ability, for sure, I would be going back and stopping that, because that started a whole chain reaction that affects us to this day. As far
Do you want to be more specific on that, Kyle? That's a broad comment.
Time Warner buys AOL, sinks AOL. Time Warner destroys WCW. With the mess that Warner Brothers is in now, I mean, it was just a disaster from the get-go.
Okay. January 20th, Too Much, Too Late, the fourth and final Lost episode. Yes, Lost episode of Miami Vice to air after its series finale, Free Fall. Its first broadcast on the USA Network. It was not aired on NBC due to its strong subject matter pertaining to child molestation. There you go. We have some 1990 TV debuts, new shows, guys. We have The Babysitters Club on January 1st, HBO. Based on the popular series of children books, this show follows the ups and downs of young teen business club for babysitters. Starring Megan Andrews, Melissa Chase, and Avril Hillman. And this one I kind of remember, guys. I don't remember the show, but I remember the name. Max Monroe, Loose Cannon, airs January 5th on CBS. Max Monroe is a Los Angeles policeman who is effective, but so wildly unconventional that many of his fellow officers refuse to work with him until he's paired with Detective Charlie Ivers. Stars Shadow Stevens, Bruce A. Young, and David Schramm. Do you guys remember Max Monroe, Kyle?
I remember loosely. I got a big marketing campaign before it came out, but it never really grabbed hold and took off.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting was I was very selective in what I was watching on television at this time. Of course, I had the VCR action going on, But there was a lot of stuff that went by me in 1999 because, well, I was into music a lot, going out, playing in a band. And, so I had to be very selective on some of the stuff that I was watching. So there was a lot of these 90s shows that I did not watch. And one of them I was not familiar with coming up next year, guys, was the newest incarnation of Zorro, The Legend Begins, on the CBN Family Channel. In 19th century Spanish California, a heroic masked swordsman, Zorro, who actually a local nobleman, must protect his friends in small town of Los Angeles from its corrupt magistrate and other menaces. Stars Patrice Martinez, Duncan Rakier, and James Victor. I don't remember this at all. Yeah, passed by me. And I do vaguely remember this because I was watching MTV a lot for, shows like, Headbangers Ball and other stuff like that. They had a show called Pirate TV. Did not last very long. The short-lived MTV series was about a ship in international waters just off the United States, run by various weird borderline social personalities who broadcast bizarre TV shows in the U.S. And I have this IMDb review that says, my favorite characters were the engineers, the Wolf brothers, played by real-life brothers, Greg and James Wolf from Albany, New York. And so do you guys remember this at all?
No, only thing I remember from MTV after music videos is Remote Control and Singled Out. And maybe like one of the, they did Cribs, right? It was MTV Cribs.
Yeah. Real World. Cribs.
Liquid Television.
Liquid Television, yeah.
Brought us Aeon Flux.
Pit My Ride, yeah. All right, guys, the next couple of shows we have here. January 28th, we had Grand Slam premiered on CBS. Meet Two Tough Nuts. If a crook jumps bail, it's up to Hardball and Gomez to find them. They'll always get their own man if they don't get each other's first. Starring John Schneider and Paul Rodriguez following the Super Bowl on January 28th.
I'm sorry, Hardball and Gomez? It's really, that's really like
this show did not last long.
Wow. And they're not friends today. Ooh, like
called Grand Slam. Yep. Okay. Next we have January 29th. It's called City on CBS. Valerie Bertinelli's back in a brand new show. She runs a city, manages a crazy staff, and deals with one wild daughter. Yet she can fit. Yes, she can fit in anyone into her busy schedule. In 1992, Liz Gianni, a city manager of an unnamed city, focuses on dealing with the realistic issues of a modern-day city with exuberance spiced with lookiness. This ad I guess the show went on for a little while, but this was a 92 ad apparently. Starring Valerie Harper, Todd Sussman, and Mary Jo Keenan. I have no memory of this show called City.
Kevin, we just need
isn't this kind of like a version of Spin City, kind of?
Yeah, like an early trial version of it. But we just need to be honest. For television in the 1990s, the only show that premiered that mattered was All About a Certain Zip Code.
Well,
well, that actually started in 88, 89, Kyle. And 90210 then, of course, just got bigger in the early 90s.
But it's one of those things that, so for me, 1990 was, my junior year of high school, right? 91, I graduated in 91. All right. So actually 90 was the first half of my senior year of high school. So you're picking, back then there's no TiVo, there's no, you're barely able to figure out if you can set your VCR properly to catch something, because they had so many preempting and the commercials. And then there's TBS, which screwed everything up because everything started at the 05 instead of, on the hour. And so it was one of those things where if you wanted to watch a show, you had to give up your Friday night or your Saturday night. And so a lot of these shows, no, nobody's and if you're in sports at all, or if you're in any sort of club.
Here's another thing too. What you're saying is basically what I said, is you have to be selective. And you could set your VCR, but I found myself recording stuff and not being able to get a chance to get to it. And I would stick with the stuff that I knew. Very rarely I would, unless a friend of mine or something said, you got to watch this new show. And then I would have to catch it on the second or third episode because I didn't record it originally. So, yeah. Well, we did have some shows that were leaving us here, guys. And The 1990 TV shows that were ending this month were Free Spirit, which is a show that I liked. Winnie Goodwin is an immortal witch, reluctantly sent earthward to do pro bono work with a mortal American family. And of course, that starred the lovely Corinne Boher, but also a young Allison Hannigan before she went on to do Willow and, of course, on Buffy. And then, of course, as we mentioned, Miami Vice was coming to an end. One of my favorite shows of all time. I vaguely remember these last episodes, though. I may not have caught them all, but I definitely was in on season 1 through 4 for sure. So
I just checked the my CLZ app for my Miami Vice full series, and the last 4 episodes are the 4 lost episodes. So when I watch the show, it's going to be like the last 4 episodes are going to be the 4 most depressing episodes because they're ones that were like not aired because of like extreme content.
Yeah.
So World of Trouble, Miracle Man, Leap of Faith, and Too Much Too Late. So that's going to be I'm going to have to do some research to figure out when those were supposed to air and like. And
Shayna Easton was the guest star towards the final seasons because her character married Sonny, and then I think she was killed if I remember correctly. So,
I can't remember, but I will be doing a full Miami Vice rewatch at some point.
Nice. By the way, I loved Free Spirit. I was bummed. That was one of the shows I did watch. I haven't seen it since, but I did catch the first couple of episodes. They are on YouTube, so you can go watch them on YouTube. Because there's only that full season, I think, or maybe half a season there. So now we do like to talk about the top rated shows of the year that we're talking about. Of course, we're talking about 1990, and we have was it number 29 spot, actually 29 and 30. There's 2 shows. There's one I was in on from day one because our family was watching it all the time, and we're all fans of everyone from the show. And the other one, I have no idea. I've never seen it or heard of it. And the 2 that I'm talking about, the one I've never heard of is called Davis Rules. Dwight Davis, a widower and grade school principal, is raising 3 sons with the help from his wacky father, Gunny. Stars Randy Quaid, Luke Edwards, Jonathan Rivers, a young Giovanni Ribisi, Bonnie Hunt, Deborah Jo Rupp, and Patricia Clarkson.
That's no memory lineup right there, man.
That is a monster cast. Come on, right? Randy Quaid was before he completely lost his mind. Jonathan Winters, Giovanni Ribisi, shortly after My Two Dads, Bonnie Hunt, Deborah Jo Rupp, and Patricia Clarkson. Come on. That is for a show I had never heard of until I saw this. That is a massive lineup.
No, I have no memory of that show, but the one show that we do know that peaked in at number 30 this time, and keep in mind this show has been on for a little while here, and that, of course, is The Wonder Years. Kevin Arnold recalls growing up during the late 60s and early 70s. The turbulent social times make the transition from child to adult unusually interesting. Of course, stars Fred Savage, Dan Lauria, Allie Mills, Jason Hervey, Danica McKellar, Josh Saviano, Olivia Diabo, and Daniel Stern as the narrator. Lacey.
Can I just say that I've never seen an episode of Wonder Years?
What?
Okay.
Yeah.
What?
That's kind of mind blowing.
What?
Because by accident, you could have come across an episode of the Wonder Years.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Wonder
Years.
Years.
Who do you know? Danica McKellar is like kind of becoming like another queen of the Hallmark movies.
Yeah.
You know who she is, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know who she was, but I didn't. So Boy Meets World and Wonder Years were the 2 that I just never saw an episode.
Wow.
Like I for some reason, like
Wonder Years was kind of like, it was required viewing in our house because, you know, obviously my parents' perspective and my perspective were both shown in this show. It was great.
You know what it felt like a full-length version of the Ralphie Christmas movie, the leg lamp.
No. It was one of the most endearing shows I've ever seen that showcased a very interesting time because a lot of us, of course, grew up, were born in the 70s. And so we're getting the 60s from our parents' point of view. and what it was like to kind of go through the turn into the 70s and the music and, the Vietnam War. It was done really, really well. And of course, what it crystallized the most was young teenage angst, having your first crush, the girl next door, your best friend, and nerding out about certain things. And it hit all of the nostalgic corners. I'm really surprised you haven't seen it.
Yeah. It's the thing, like I know who Winnie Cooper is just from like all the surrounding, just like I know who Topanga is. Right?
I got to pick up my brains. My mind is blown that you had not seen it.
Yeah. I'm like, Lacey has not had the Winnie Cooper Topanga experience. That's
well, I feel like
mind blowing to me. Kevin, though, we all have to admit, how much were we all crushing on Winnie Cooper at this point?
Every boy was crushing on Winnie Cooper. Brilliantly played by Danica McKellar. She was just the sweet girl next door, and oh gosh, yeah. So, and then of course the hot older sister, Olivia D'Alba's character.
Y'all were watching that. I was watching Doogie Howser.
We watched Doogie Howser too. It was required viewing it in our house as well. So, well, as we move on, guys, this is the Fandom Podcast Network. This, of course, is Time Warp 1990, and we are talking about the movies of 1990. All right. We do have some celebrity film debuts that I did want to mention, of course. And we have, of course, June Squibb was in the movie Alice. Jeffrey Wright, guys, made a good name for him lately, presumed innocent. And Catherine Zeta-Jones was in Les 1001 Nuits. Don't know that movie.
Les Mille et Un Nuits.
Exactly. 1990. Here we go, guys. Now, as we start this, I have an interesting movie to start off the show of 1990, because guess what? It was not filmed in 1990, guys. That is Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Technically, it was filmed in 86 and supposed to be released in 86, but it did not. And Lacey, before I go any further, you are holding a couple of different editions of this. Showcase those real quick there.
Yes. Okay. So I've got where's my camera? Okay. Henry, this is the 30th anniversary Blu-ray, 82 minutes. Actually it says 1986 on it. Just FYI. And then it's of course by John McNaughton. Then we have the super amazing, this is the Arrow release with the ginormous, it's got like all the extra features in it here.
Wow, that's impressive.
It's a big thick honking one. And so it also has, along with the movie, it also has the full notes on all, here, I'll turn it around. It's got full notes, all kinds of interviews.
Wow, that's impressive.
With all the actors and directors and everybody, and then there's a huge poster, but then you also have, this is like all the storyboards, like it's a book of all the storyboards.
Nice.
So it's I mean, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of really cool information. The poster is actually threefold, and I don't want to undo it all the way because it's just going to be. But
that's impressive. That's very cool.
It's a nice, giant poster.
So real quick, the IMDb write up on this is: arriving in Chicago, Henry moves in with his ex-con acquaintance Otis and starts schooling him in the ways of the serial killer. Loosely based on the serial killer Henry Lee Lucas, the film follows Henry and his roommate Otis, who Henry introduces to murdering random selected people. Henry lacks compassion in everything and isn't the kind to leave behind witnesses of any kind. Director John McNaughton stars Michael Rooker, Tracy Arnold, and Tom Tolles. Now, I wanted to bring this to the table for a couple interesting things here, guys. That's in one of the trivia things. I'm going to leave the trivia to you, Kyle. But this film got an official release finally in 1990. People were sitting on this for a long time, and I'll let you say that in the trivia, Kyle. But one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this to the table was my wife, Erin, at the time wasn't my wife when she had a conversation with Michael Rooker, who played Henry. We were at Walker Stalker Convention in Atlanta, Lacey, and it was the year that I actually proposed to my wife in front of Bruce Campbell. At Walker Stalker, yes.
I knew it was. I knew it was at a convention. I didn't realize it was at Walker Stalker. I was probably there at that time.
Yeah,
I was
so
there in the room. Ooh.
Evil Dead is her favorite movie of all time, and she's a big horror fan. And of course, at the time, The Walking Dead was the biggest show in the planet, pretty much. And of course, as we know, Michael Rooker had a role in that for quite a while. And he was kind of hanging around. I forget who. I was getting something signed by someone next to him, and I can't remember at the time right now. But she had a quick conversation with him in between people. She went up to him and said, "Hey, I really liked your performance in Henry. It's one of my favorite movies." And he was really taken aback by that because not a lot of people bring up this movie, and he was very proud of it. He was very proud of this, and he went on to talk about how proud he was with it. And she, you know how when you bring up something to a celebrity about something else that they've done and what they're there for, and they go, "Oh, I had fun on that," and they love talking about it, and they open up and they feel more comfortable talking to you. That's what this situation was. And so I wanted to bring this to the table because it is a tough watch. You can watch it on YouTube, and I think it's also on Amazon, if I remember correctly. But I did want to have Kyle, why don't you go ahead and give us some trivia on this first, and then we'll continue.
Yeah, Michael Rooker said he was working as a janitor when he auditioned for the part of Henry and went to the audition in his janitor uniform. He got the part and continued to wear his uniform throughout the film shoot. He only had one jacket, though, and he took it off before he killed anyone so he wouldn't get blood on it. Although this film was completed in 1986, the film did not get a theatrical release until 89-90. It is often mistakenly claimed that this was due to its being tied up in censorship issues with the MPAA. And although this is true to a degree, the majority of the delay occurred because the executive producers were somewhat underwhelmed by the film turned in by director John McNaughton and weren't sure if it was even worth their time releasing it on VHS, let alone a theatrical release. Also, the film was shot on 16 millimeter in 28 days with a budget of $110,000. I don't even think that gets a Marvel movie off the ground at this point. It initially earned $600,000 on its extremely limited theatrical run, but has since gone on to earn millions on VHS and DVD as well as theatrical re-releases. And on my own note, I just have to say, Michael Rooker, from Henry to Mary Poppins.
Lacey, what are your thoughts of Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer?
Okay, I saw this movie a while ago, and then I was like, I'm gonna watch this. I'm gonna watch all the special features. I'm gonna pull up because I hadn't seen it on Blu-ray. And I keep not watching it because I know how like dark it is, and I keep not watch. I know I will watch it eventually. It's gonna have to be one of those ones where I have to have someone in the house, and I live alone, and so I need someone to watch it with.
So you're waiting. You haven't seen it yet. You're waiting.
Well, I mean, I saw it a million years ago. I mean, I saw it when it came out, or not when it came out, but I saw it on VHS because I worked at a Blockbuster like the rest of us. So I've seen it. I haven't seen it recently. I remember it like it was dark, So
So you know what's interesting about it is that my wife has seen it and she says, "Oh, it's dark. It's a tough watch." Blah blah blah. I get that, and I'm familiar with who Henry Lee Lucas is. I remember listening to a true crime podcast talking about his gruesome run. Jesus, but I actually thought this movie was going to be a lot more bloodier and violent than it was. There's some disturbing scenes, especially when they buy a video camera and they tape one of their assaults, and that's a tough watch. But I thought it was going to be more brutal than it was because I've seen a lot of brutal films. Yeah. But the tone of this film is definitely disturbing. Kyle, have you seen Henry?
I have seen Henry, and for me, it's one of those movies. Rooker puts in a phenomenal performance, but it's a movie I can only watch one time. And part of that is because of my background and what my parents did for a living, and knowing
your father being a police officer,
and just hearing stories of people like this, and knowing that there are people like this out in the world. To watch this, it's kind of a little bit of a flash of reality that I lived through enough.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, Lacey, let us know when you finally get around to it. I'd love to get your thoughts on it. So, you might want to watch it with a friend.
I know, that's the thing. I need to watch it with another person because it's just.
Well, next we have, and I do remember this film. I think I saw it in the theater. I may have seen it on VHS, but it is a tough movie to find on any physical media, and that is the movie Downtown. It only made a little over $2 million in its theatrical run. It stars Anthony Edwards and Forrest Whitaker, Joey Pantoliano, and Penelope Ann Miller. An eager rookie cop gets transferred to a tough downtown Philadelphia precinct after stopping a powerful man for traffic violations. When his old cop buddy is murdered, he wants in on catching the killer, directed by Richard Benjamin. Kyle, we don't have a lot of trivia on this, but go ahead and give us what you got.
This film has often been considered as being one of the knockoffs of Lethal Weapon, which came out in 1987, or the picture has often been considered to be the reverse of Beverly Hills Cop.
Beverly Hills Cop in reverse. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The picture upon first release was both a critical and commercial failure at the box office. And Kevin, I think this is a good point. We are still in the beginning of 1990s when January was a horrible. If the studio was just trying to get rid of it, it felt like this is when they would release it in January or February.
You're breaking up towards the end there. What was the last thought?
What'd you say, Kyle?
I said we're at a point here where still in 1990, January was the dumping ground month.
Yeah,
for a lot of films.
Yeah. This is true. I remember this, and I found it. I found it streaming for free online on a website. It wasn't like YouTube or something like that, but it was actually a decent copy of it. If you search for it, you'll find it. I don't remember the name of the website, but it was fun to watch it. And I did watch it, and I actually kind of like this movie. I love Anthony Edwards. He's funny in this movie, and I kind of miss Anthony Edwards being funny because he was very serious throughout his run in ER. He was funny in Revenge of the Nerds. He was funny in Top Gun. I miss him being funny, and I get that here. And of course, Forrest Whitaker is the seasoned Philadelphia cop in this, and it's rated R for reasons for violence and language, and I actually kind of enjoyed revisiting this movie. Lacey, do you remember Downtown?
I do remember it. I remember it a million years ago. I want to say that it was definitely on the shelf when I was at the Blockbuster. I tried once we were starting to do 1990. I was going through all my stuff, and I went on my app, and I was figuring out what I have this 1990, what I haven't, whatever. And I could have sworn I owned this movie. I think I owned it on DVD. Nope, before that.
VHS?
On VHS before. And it kind of kills me that I sold my whole VHS collection way back in the day to fund moving to Los Angeles. But and I tried to find it on VHS, Blu-ray, anything, and it was like $80 on Amazon.
Yeah.
It was like 100 and something on eBay. There was one I was so stoked because I found it for like $12 at Walmart, and it was like non-USA format. Like, dang it. So, but
Kyle,
Kyle,
do you remember Downtown?
Oh, very vaguely. I remember seeing it when I think it came out on video initially. Again, at this point, I was working at video counters and stuff like that. But this was one of those ones. I'm a huge Anthony Edwards fan, so it's vague remembrance. I remember it very much being the reverse of Beverly Hills Cop, where the cop goes from the fancy to the thing, but it wasn't a standout film, and it's representative of that. And there was a much better police film that came out this month anyway. So,
well, speaking of, let's get into the next film here, guys, and let's hold up our copies. We've got Internal Affairs, and its theatrical run just made over $27 million. I've got my Australian Blu-ray edition here, and you have the newer 4K release there, Lacey, right?
Yep. And it's a Blu-ray. It's a Blu-ray It's a 4K and Blu-ray combo pack.
Nice. Does it come with digital too?
No, I don't believe it did. It might have. I don't remember. I haven't.
It's about an internal affairs agent who becomes obsessed with bringing down a cop who has managed to maintain a spotless reputation despite being involved in a web of corruption. Directed by Mike Figgis, of course, stars Richard Gere, as you've never seen him before, Andy Garcia, and Nancy Travis. Kyle, hit us up with some trivia.
Oh, do I have some trivia for this movie? This is actually pretty well known. Richard Gere and Andy Garcia reportedly did not get along during filming. No. They hated each other.
Worked well, I guess.
Some of the scenes in which they were required to hit each other, particularly the confrontation in the elevator, were allegedly for real. Garcia subsequently refused to attend the rap party. and I'm going to get into this a little more, but Richard Gere's favorite movie of his own, despite his feud with Andy Garcia. He later worked with Mike Vegas on Mr. Jones in 1993, and considered to be one of the two comeback vehicles Richard Gere made in 1990, the other one being Pretty Woman in 1990. Kevin, can I go on a rant here for just a second?
Oh, please. Yeah, let's hear the Kyle rant. I love when Kyle gets on a rant. Let's do it.
Okay, so when we look at 1990, this movie came out in January of 1990. It kind of went a little unnoticed until Pretty Woman came out. And then all the ladies were looking for anything with Richard Gere. Oh, we love Richard Gere. We love Richard Gere. I'm like, okay, go watch Internal Affairs. It's Richard Gere. You'll love it. I think I pissed more women off in a 6-month span doing that, because how dare you send me to watch a movie where Richard Gere is so evil. But Kevin, we talk about the stars in this movie. You obviously you have Richard Gere, you have Andy Garcia, you got Nancy Travis, who I fell in love with in this movie.
She was so cute in this. Yeah.
Laurie Metcalf, complete turn from her character on Roseanne.
Yep.
You have William Baldwin in maybe his most annoying role ever as Van Stretch. Just the name itself is just crazy. You have one of my favorites in Michael Beach, but you also have Faye Grant from V, who played Penny Van Stretch, who was William Baldwin's wife and did him dirty in this movie. And just a great cast all the way around, and a pure performance of evil by Richard Gere in this movie. He was a bastard through and through in this film.
I can't say any better than that, unless that he probably enjoyed playing it. Yeah. Lacey, your thoughts on Internal Affairs?
Okay, so really dark film. Lots of abuse of all the things: alcohol, drugs, women, spousal abuse, all kinds of domestic abuse, just all the things. Hard to watch at times. I'm gonna go with best career performance for Gere. And I've seen all the things. I mean, it's not a movie that I'll watch a lot. It just isn't. I will recommend it to people if you want to see like the quintessential Richard Gere. I mean, he's so good. It's not something that I would have. Like, I remember seeing bits and pieces of her, whatever, when I was a kid or when I was younger. But I couldn't pinpoint like an actual time where I sat and watched this. So when I bought it on a 4K, I didn't really know what I was getting into. But I knew that just from what I remembered, that it had a lot of like dark and like shadowy kind of stuff, and then also the brightness during the daytime stuff. So I wanted to get it on 4K so I could see. And I got to tell you, I watched the 4K to watch the film, and then I watched the Blu-ray to listen to the commentary, which is very informative and interesting. But the 4K transfer is amazing. The blacks and the shadows, and it looks great. Also, there's something to be said for like a 7-year-old Elijah Wood's blue eyes on 4K. Like, that kid had one line, and yeah.
Kyle?
The other thing about this movie, and all kidding aside, this movie is an acting clinic by both Richard Gere and Andy Garcia. This might be, for both of them, top 3 performances of all time. And that's saying a lot, because these guys have huge IMDb's and a huge catalog. But they are so phenomenal in this. And because they had that real life tension, it really shone through in this film. I mean, you really thought these two men truly hated each other.
Especially when Andy's character confronts his wife's character, Nancy,
after he found out she had lunch with Richard Gere's character.
Yeah.
But the thing is that because of the intensity of it, you can't always decide if Richard Gere's Richard Gere's a bad guy, but Andy Garcia hits the dark side himself in this film.
Yeah, he crosses the line. Yeah.
And it's so intense, and just a film that I think is actually very representative of early 90s.
Yep.
Films.
And let's not forget that Laurie Metcalf's character is openly gay, which is I mean, that's for the 90s, for 1990, that's pretty cutting edge.
Yeah, good thriller, good movie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's the next one we have. Let's lighten things up here a little bit. We've got Ski Patrol made about $8 million in an original theatrical run. It's on Tubi and Pluto, if I remember correctly. The Snowy Peak Ski Patrol is one diverse crew. While having fun and keeping the mountain safe, they try to save the lodge from greedy land developer Sam Maris. Stars Roger Rose, TK Carter, Yvette, Leslie Jordan, and a plethora of other, I think, who else is in this? A bunch of others. God, trying to remember all the other. It has a little bit of everyone there. I think Richard Mall's in it, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So Kyle, give us some trivia on Ski Patrol.
A Siskel and Ebert fruit cart appears in the movie in reference to Roger Ebert's glossary of movie terms, where under the title fruit cart, it's explained that during any chase scene involving a foreign or ethnic locale, a fruit cart will be overturned during the chase, and an angry peddler will run into the middle of the street to shake his fist at the hero's departing vehicle. At the time of filming, executive producer Paul Maslansky anticipated also making Ski Patrol 2, 3, and a possible spin-off television series, none of which actually came to fruition. You're about 25 years too early on that kind of planning. But and of course, the acting debut of the one and only George Lopez.
George Lopez, yes, in here. Ray Walston, he plays Pops. He's the owner of the ski area. Martin Mull, as I mentioned in there. And Lacey, you're holding up an actual physical copy of this. Hard to find, right? Or is that a new edition?
No, this is the MVD, which is it's like a boutique Blu-ray shop. And they've done a lot of stuff. Actually, I have a lot of 90s stuff from them, including Dark Angels, some stuff that we're going to come up with actually next month. But it's kind of cool. They always have a reversible cover, and most of their DVDs.
A lot of boutique ones are doing it. Kino Lorber does that too, which I love. I think it's great. Yeah.
But the cool thing is, every single one of these MVD is called the Rewind Collection, and every single one of them comes with a fun poster. Nice. Of the cover. So that's kind of cool, and it has a nice little slip cover, which is nice. It's kind of got it's supposed to look like an old VHS with like fake stickers.
I love it when they do that. The retro covers, like Walmart did with a bunch of movies. Yeah.
Yes.
So, what are your thoughts on Ski Patrol? Let's start with you, Lacey.
Well, it's just one of those one. I mean, it's funny, it's hilarious. It's the same as like Ski School, or much later on, you've got Out Cold. It's generally the same thing. It's the mountain is owned by the Pops guy, and then there's like a bad, evil, real estate guy who wants to buy the mountain and make it more whatever. It's good. It's super fun. Leslie Jordan is a main character in it, and of course, we lost him a year and a half ago now, almost 2 years now. And he's
the leader of the safety crew patrol. In this movie.
Yes. So it's basically it's Police Academy on skis.
Yeah. Kyle, have you seen Ski Patrol?
I have seen it on cable. If you ask me if I remember anything about it, not really, because it is, like Lacey said, ski school. I mean, if you're going to talk 90s skiing movies, to me, there's only one thing to talk about, and that's a few years later with Aspen Extreme.
Yay!
Dexter Rutecki, ladies and gentlemen.
Dexter Rutecki. Mm-hmm.
Oh God. Okay. Any other thoughts on Ski Patrol, Kyle?
It's a fun little movie for what it is. I mean, like I said, it like Lacey hit the point. It's a wash, rinse, repeat movie. We've had Ski School, we've had other ski type movies just like this. It's a pretty common script. It seems like with any kind of ski lodge type comedy movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hot dog. It's basically it's the Ski Patrol. They're like the wacky, offbeat kind of wacky group, right? And then you've got the guys who are also skiers who, as you can imagine them in real life, they have always got like the folded sweater over their shoulders, like they're
the jerk skiers, right? There's always like the crazy guy, and then
there's the weird,
So you guys know me well enough.
Yes.
If I were to say this movie's biggest fault, what would it be? Come on, you guys know me. Come on.
Not enough boobs.
Dark.
What did you say, Kyle?
It was filmed too dark.
No, Lacey, what'd you say?
Not enough boobs.
Lacey's on to the right thing here. This movie needed to be rated R. I'm sorry. movies like Hot Dog or a lot of these other these type of movies have to be rated R. I'm not just talking about your gratuitous nudity here, but you needed more crass stuff happening, and you get away with that with R-rated films, as well as, of course, the hot girl, taking her tops off or whatever. But you need the language, you need that, and this movie was just too nice for the type of movie that it was trying, that has already been done before. The only thing I found enjoyable and funny about this is the Leslie Jordan character, especially when they gave him these fake like growing pills, because Leslie Jordan is famously short. And they ended up, after he goes to sleep, they end up putting him in like the little elf house. And he's big inside this tiny house. And he thinks that he took too many of the pills. That was the only entertaining thing about this movie, to be honest with you. This movie, it just, if you're going to do a movie like this, you got to make it rated R, make it risque, go with the rated R tropes in a movie like this. I didn't enjoy this film. Lacey knows me better than you, Kyle. Lacey knows me better than you.
Hey, I'm still on injury, but Kevin, again, this goes back to the shift in themes. If this comes out in the early 80s, it probably is R-rated with a lot more.
Yeah, I think they were trying to make some of these films a little more, because this is a PG movie, and they were trying to get the tone of the R-rated films, but you're not going to fool if it's not rated R, you're going to go, it's not going to be fun. So, all right. The next movie is called Brain Dead. Made about 1,600,000 its original theatrical run. It's a horror film. It is available on Amazon, also on Tubi if you want to watch it. In a showdown of man versus machine, Martin plunges into a chaotic nightmare trying to save his mind from the megalomaniac corporation. Directed by Adam Simon, stars Bill Pullman, Bill Paxton, Bud Cort, and George Kennedy. Kyle, give us some trivia on this, please. I got thoughts.
Dr. Rex Martin, Bill Pullman, mentioned that he went to Miskatonic University, the college where Re-Animator 1985 took place. I have a feeling we're going to talk about Re-Animator later. Miskatonic University is supposedly located in Arkham, Massachusetts. Of course, Arkham means that, that's always scary. A fictional town created by H.P. Lovecraft. So yeah, this is all messed up from 18 different directions. In one scene, Bill Pullman screams, "I'm not dead yet." He screams the same line in The Serpent and the Rainbow when his character is buried alive. Monty Python still did it better.
I'm not dead yet. Yes. I watched this for free. I was kind of curious because it's got a very interesting cover. The face is being spread out and it looked creepy, brain dead, blah, blah, blah. But this movie was kind of forgettable for me, to be honest with you. But it did bring up an interesting thing. It made me want to see more movies together with Bill Pullman and Bill Paxton. I would love to see these guys. I would have loved to have seen them more and interact with each other. They had, of course, some scenes in this. And that's all I kept thinking about was this film. This film is kind of a boring horror film, but these actors are really good, and I would love to have seen more of them in it. Have any of you guys seen Brain Dead?
Can't say that I have.
I have not. But
okay.
I didn't realize that Paxton and Pullman had done a film together, because there is, and we won't get into it because it's a long, long thing, but go online and look up the Paxton-Pullman paradox.
Okay.
Okay. And it's really fascinating because so many people confuse them.
It's true. And that was the one thing I was pulling from this film, is like, I want to see these two in a better film. They could have done a comedy together. They could have done a drama together. They could have done a Western together. I would have loved to have seen these two Bills in a better film together. That was the thing that I took away from Brain Dead. The next film, of course, as we know, Married with Children is becoming one of the hottest shows on television on the newly minted Fox network. And the next movie we have, which has one of its stars in it, is called Streets. Didn't make a lot of Didn't make a lot of money in the theater. Streets made about $800,000 in the theater. I don't think it had a long run. You can find this movie on YouTube and, of course, on Amazon. More famously starring Christina Applegate as a young runaway living in Venice, California, under the threat of a psychotic cop who is a serial killer of prostitutes. and I'm holding up a VHS copy that I found on eBay, kind of cheap too. That is the way that I watched this first. And then I'm like, oh, wait, there's a better version on Amazon. So watch a little bit on Amazon as well. Now, the next year we get Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. Christina Applegate's becoming a big star, of course. She's making the rounds around Hollywood. She's dating some famous Hollywood, kids. Well, I mean, she's becoming the one of the it girls. She's gorgeous and she's funny. She's talented, but she wanted to make the dramatic turn. This is kind of a nasty film. I don't know if you guys remember this or not. More the person that is most memorable for me though is actually the killer cop played by Eb Latimer. He's really nasty in this movie, and he's like a great horror villain. I kind of wanted to see his character. He should have been the maniac cop. Just to let you know. Have you guys seen Streets? Do you remember Streets, Lacey?
I don't, but I saw the trivia on this saying that Christina Applegate was only 16 when she filmed this, and apparently she did all of her partial nude scenes as well. So that seems like there's definitely some rules being broken while they made this movie.
On that, by the way, there's the actor that she is having the romantic scene with does a very nice job of cupping her breasts so she's not going full frontal on this. So in case you're curious, Kyle, you have some trivia first, don't you?
Yeah, well, I'm adding on to what Lacey said. Kat Shea said in an interview that
the director, by the way.
Yeah, but she researched the film by talking to several homeless people who she hung out with for a while. She met a girl who was a heroin addict, and that's who she used as a basis for Dawn. Since the sitcom Married with Children in 1987 was a huge hit at the time, director Kat Shea was often asked why they didn't give this film a wide release to cash in on the popularity of Christina Applegate. She said that producer Roger Corman never gave his films a wide release, which is very true. She also heard rumors that Fox, who produced Married, had contacted Corman warning him not to do it. They didn't want Applegate playing a homeless drug addict to tarnish her character on their show.
That I believe 100%. Because
now, Kevin,
character on the show was so popular.
We got to mention too that Aaron Eisenberg is also in this movie, and for you Star Trek fans out there, that is Nog. From
yes, he has a small role in this. It's a nasty film. Like I said, the cop is really bad because he kills a lot of people because he's trying to get to her. There's some really great scenes filmed in and around Venice in LA area, which I was obviously familiar with too. And she teams up, of course, with she has some other homeless friends as well. A tough watch, though, got to be honest with you, though. But it is one of those kind of culty films that if you were a fan, and I think it was hard to find this movie on VHS at the time as well. And it was kind of like one of those things. Did you see Streets? Did you see Streets? Oh, you like Christina Applegate? You like Married with Children? You got to see Streets, So yeah, but her nudity wasn't as blatant as some people would think. But it is her being young at that time. That might have been breaking some rules there.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, the next film we have Tremors, made over $16.5 million in its original theatrical run. You can find this movie on Tubi, by the way. Natives of a small isolated town defend themselves against strange underground creatures which are killing them one by one. Directed by Ron Underwood, stars Kevin Bacon, Fred Ward, Finn Carter, Michael Gross, and Reba McEntire. Lacey, what copy are you holding up there?
Well, I've got the original two films on DVD, and those are kind of fun. And then I have the 4-pack because until you were talking a minute ago, I didn't realize that there were 7 movies. The 4-pack. This is, I will say, the first one and the fourth one have special features. The second and third one, I think that those were the 2 and 3 were directed by or done by the same group as the first one. Right. So I think that they just did commentary on the first one, and that was great, and some other special features. But then you get to the fourth one, there's commentary, a bunch of special features. It was fun. I watched all 4 of these this past weekend. And all the commentaries and everything. It was really, it's a good, fun, ridiculous. Yeah, it's fun.
So we recently, a few days ago, I believe, actually, we re-released our 2020 Couch Potato Theater of Tremors. Kyle, we had only at the time, of course, we were only doing audio podcasts. So this is before our video podcast, and we wanted to celebrate, of course, let people know the reason why we released it recently, and it was a link to the audio podcast because, of course, it's celebrating its 35th anniversary. But we had a very special guest star, and please check out the audio podcast. It's on the network. We had a very special guest star, my friend Jonathan Melville, who I've actually met in Scotland because we both share love for Highlander, and he's written a book. He's an author. He's written a book about all behind the scenes of Highlander, and he did a whole great book and interviewed all the people about it. But he also is a huge Tremors fan, and he wrote a book about Tremors called Seeking Perfection, the Unofficial Guide to Tremors. And he actually interviewed Kevin Bacon and met him and got his picture taken with him. And if you see the podcast cover art, I included that in there. But speaking of the Kyle, before you read the trivia, I did want to mention that the copy I've always had was the Tremors Attack Pack that you have, but in DVD form. But I wanted to kind of upgrade that. And as you mentioned, yes, there is 7 movies of Tremors total. And I did get the Tremors 7 movie collection on Blu-ray because it also includes the digital code for all of them. Am I going to watch all of them? Hell no. But I did want a digital copy of at least the first few. I kind of want to watch that 4th one now after you and I were talking about it. But I think on Amazon, this thing was about like $25. So I think it was worth it. Kyle, give us some trivia on Tremors.
So there's some interesting trivia on Tremors, especially involving Kevin Bacon. He originally resented it being in Tremors, only agreeing to do it because he needed the money for his new marriage and upcoming newborn child. When the film was not financially successful, Bacon feared his career was over, and the following years would refuse to acknowledge the film's existence and even called it the worst thing I ever did. However, Bacon would eventually come around to Tremors, calling the filming of Tremors to be the single most fun time I've ever had making a movie in my entire career. In 2012, and later admitting in a 2020 interview, when I was making Tremors, I was very depressed and at a low point in my life, and I kind of blamed Tremors for all of that. I was bitter against it. I thought it was a career killer. I never watched my movies more than once. Some of my movies I've never seen before and have no desire to. But I've watched Tremors a dozen times. I love it so much, and I spent years trying to capture the same energy we had on the set of Tremors. It's one of my favorite films of all time. S.S. Wilson said that he got the idea for the film while he was working for the U.S. Navy in the California desert. While resting on a rock, he imagined what it might be like if something underground kept him from getting off the rock. We call that the floor is lava.
Yes.
Although Tremors was not a big hit during its theatrical run, the film became a runaway smash in the home video market and ultimately tripled its original box office gross with VH sales and rentals. And Kevin, I am going to say this now, and I have said this for years. Tremors is the ultimate couch potato theater movie. It is a B movie that is at an A level. And it's one of the most rewatchable films of all time.
I remember when we were doing the Couch Potato Theater with Jonathan Melville, great guy out of Scotland. He loved this movie, and I remember that they have, and he did that book a while ago. It was one of his first books that he did before the Highlander book, and they get together for like a Tremors like little convention reunion at the California town that they filmed this in, out in the desert. I don't remember where that is, so forgive me. I don't have that information in front of me. But it was so funny because at one of the more recent ones, when we did that podcast, Kyle, in 2020, there was a picture of his book displayed among with all the memorabilia and people. It was great watching like people doing like macrame or different versions of these little creatures and making their own versions of the tentacles, and people dressing up as them and stuff like that. It is a beloved film, and you're right, Kyle. It is the ultimate couch potato theater. And that was a fun podcast that we did. Please make sure you guys go on the network and find that. Lacey, your thoughts on Tremors?
It's got two of my favorite quotes. Just Kevin Bacon saying, "See, we think ahead, so we don't have to do anything now." And I can't do the timing of it. It's just so perfect. And then when Chang walks up and says, "Hey, Earl, here's some cheese and some bullets." And he just drops it there, and it's just so off the cuff. It's just hilarious. It's just a fun I didn't see this in the theaters. I missed it. And my best friend, when we met each other 10 years later, she was like, I talked to her on the phone one day and she's cracking up. And I was like, what is going on? She's like, oh, I've got Tremors on in the background. And I was like, well, are you okay? And she's like, no, there's a movie, the movie. And I was like, what? And she told me about it. And I was like, okay. And she absolutely sparked my love of bad B, like monster movies. This movie, like I'd go over to her house, we'd watch it, every weekend for months. And now anything that involves the word mega in the title, or some sort of like crossbred human and animal accident, that they're all like, these are some of my favorite movies now. But it's because of Tremors, and I was really late to the party on it.
Well, you're not alone there, Lacey, and Kyle, remind me too, because I didn't see this in the theater. It did not have a big theatrical run. It came out on video, and that's where it blew up. And it was kind of one of those word of mouth things. And then it became a popular rental at the VHS, rental stores. And that's where I found out about it too. And of course I remember Kevin Bacon, and seeing Footloose in the theater, but this one, for whatever reason, escaped me. What say you, Kyle?
Oh, I saw this in the theaters. I saw the trailer for this movie in front of something, and I'm like, oh, I have to see this. Plus, nice. Kevin Bacon in it, Fred Ward. I was all over this. I actually ended up going back and seeing it in the theaters again because I loved it so much. This is one of those movies. If I pop it on, if I come across it on cable, I'm probably stopping it and watching it.
Nice.
Yeah, I just remember because like the Family Ties dad was in it, and then like Reba McEntire, one of the biggest country stars of all time, are playing a married couple who likes guns.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's the thing. That's one of the. This movie is
you so broke into the wrong basement, didn't you?
Can you fly? But no, that's the thing about this movie though. The casting is so well done because here you have Kevin Bacon, who is still pretty well known to everybody, even though he felt like he was out of career mode. And you got Fred Ward as these two country hicks who think they always have a plan. And then you completely taken Michael Gross, the dad from Family Ties, and made him a gun nut, crazy guy. And Reba McEntire, one of the sweetest people on the planet, yet here she is welding. I can't even get penetration with the elephant gun.
It's funny too, when you live here in California, Tremors takes on a new term when you hear about it because we're earthquake country. And I love the fact that the creature effects, practical effects are great in this, and how they had to be safe on rocks, and like you said, the floor is lava type of game, but in a different manner. Just a fun movie, and it has lived on in our fandoms for a very long time. And of course, this has become the Michael Gross sequel thing. He's been coming back doing these sequels. There's 7 of these films. Will I watch them all? No. But so I'm happy that he kind of took on the mantle and kept him going and became the Tremors killer expert, I guess.
One of
I will watch them all. Now that I know there's 3 more, I will be watching the other 3.
There you go. I would love to get I would love to get your take on which one you think is a good sequel. So yeah.
Okay. So far, I would say 1 and then 4.
Kyle.
One of the reasons why this movie was also so good, the executive producer on this was Gail Ann Hurd.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Yeah.
And also, how many people have mistaken the kind of the loudmouth teenage kid in this for Jason Hervey?
Oh, I know, right? Yeah.
Billy Jacoby. That's Billy Jacoby, right?
Yeah, it's Bobby Jacoby.
Oh, Bobby. Okay.
All right.
Billy's brother.
Okay, guys, let's get into the next film here. This one I did not know existed. It's actually a TV film, but it was a huge production at the time, a big deal. And at the time, this had some stars in it, guys. This is Treasure Island, starring Charlton Heston, a young teenage Christian Bale, Oliver Reed, and Christopher Lee. The poster says, "Sail the high seas, battle the pirates, live the adventure. Treasure Island." And I had seen versions of Treasure Island before, but I had never seen this one. And Lacey, we found DVD copies. I've got mine, I think, off Amazon, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So at first I couldn't find them. I'm like, is this thing available? I tried to find it, and you can rent it on Amazon if you want to pay for it. I was just like, you know what? I'm going to pop for the DVD. And then you did too as well, Lacey. So that was cool. Now this was a big deal. This was a British production. It had a big movie premiere event on TV on January 22nd of 1990. Kyle, give us some trivia on this first.
So, although not the most famous version, this movie is widely considered to be the best and most accurate adaptation of the Robert Louis Stevenson novel. Charlton Heston and Christian Bale became good friends from working together on this movie. Bale was one of the few high-profile celebrities seen at Heston's funeral years later, and Charlton Heston has said that this was one of his all-time favorite performances. Also, the ship used in this movie is the HMS Bounty from the mutiny on the Bounty in 1962. So, what's crazy to me is I've never seen this, and I guess it's because there's been so many versions of Treasure Island, you just kind of get burned out on them. But this might be the greatest cast ever for Treasure Island.
The production value on this TV movie was amazing. And also, too, if you know, it also had Empire Strikes Back and Indiana Jones 3 veteran Julian Glover. He was in it as well. The cast was amazing. The production was amazing. The locations were great. The costumes were great. The acting was great. I remember seeing a couple different versions. I know there's the famous Disney version as well. Gotta say, this is my favorite version, the ones that I've seen. And it takes a darker turn too. It's not kiddie, which I like about it. There's a lot of drama to this. There's high stakes to this. You know, people die. There's battle between the mutineers and the captain, the people that are with the captain. It gets a little nasty, especially for a TV movie, but it was realistic. I felt they represented that time as well. Lacey, what are your thoughts? You've seen it. You got it on DVD. What do you think?
Yeah, and also don't forget this was Charlton Heston's son, Fraser. This was his first directorial effort.
Yes, he does audio commentary, which I didn't get around to.
It's the commentary is really interesting. There's a lot of conversation about working with his dad, and he had worked with his dad a bunch before in other capacities, but this was the first time he went to his dad and said, I think I really want to direct, and he was like, good, let's do it. Like, he was just on board from the moment he said so. And it was really interesting to hear him talk about his dad and their relationship, as well as their actor director relationship. Had nothing but kind words about like all these amazing people that he'd grown up with, because let's face it, when you're Charlton Heston's son, you grow up around like amazing actors, these people that, and apparently he was always on set with his dad for all the different movies and stuff. So, but it was first of all, it was directed fantastic. It was an amazing directorial effort. You can tell by the film that he had been paying attention when he was on all these other film sets. And Christian Bale is great. Oliver Reed, everyone is great in this movie. Christopher Lee plays the blind beggar.
Yeah.
Like, Christopher Lee came in for 7 minutes of screen time.
Yeah.
I mean,
and Christian Bale, of course, his other big film was Empire of the Sun with Steven Spielberg's film. And he was really good in this. You could definitely see this guy's going to be a good actor. And I'm like, God, this is the kid that became Batman. And he was really good in this. Really good.
And I think he went from this straight to Newsies.
Okay. That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. And which he was not supposed, he has said in the past that it was not a musical when he signed on. And then halfway through, doing things, it was supposed to be, so he wouldn't have done that if he had known it was going to be a musical. But, so it's interesting. I feel like his track, he was very clearly trying to get into, very dramatic acting. So Empire of the Sun, and then this, and then to go from this to a film that was initially supposed to be about the strike and the paper strike and all that kind of stuff. So it was going to be another very dramatic film. So I think that he was very much in a serious dramatic.
Well, you definitely saw how good an actor is going to be. This was just a fun. This was a fun pirate movie, and Charlton Heston was great. I could see why he enjoyed this film. And every time I was looking at Oliver Reed going, I just came, dude, careful on the alcohol, man, because you know what it did to him in Gladiator. So but it was. I loved his role in this as well. So make sure you guys check it out. Okay, all right, guys. The next film we get to some horror. Bride of Re-Animator made over 2.5 million in its theatrical run. You can find this movie on YouTube on several channels. And I did want to mention that I was trying to find this for free. So I went to YouTube. You can find it several channels. You can find it on several channels. But I recommend watching Creature Features. It's a YouTube channel of these kind of funny little goth couple that get together and they dress up. And like the girl dresses up with this like white long braid. She's kind of kooky, and they introduce the film, and then they come back and talk about it. I watched that version. It was a lot of fun doing that. Bride of Re-Animator. Dr. Herbert West and Dan Kane discover the secret to creating human life and proceed to create a perfect woman from dead tissue. Directed by Brian Yuzna. Of course, one of the original writers, H.P. Lovecraft. Stars Jeffrey Combs, Bruce Abbott, Claude Earl Jones, Fabiana Odino, and Kathleen Kinmont. Now, full disclosure, guys. I like the original Re-Animator. I actually have this cool green version, double disc here. And of course, the thing that he injects to reanimate is that bright green color. We'll get into that in trivia in a little bit. I did have another version of Re-Animator, and I'm not a big horror fan, but I love Jeffrey Combs in this. He's creepy. I love the idea. It gets kind of graphic sometimes, but I'd never seen Bride of Re-Animator. I didn't realize, too, that there was like 2 other Re-Animator films out there. I was trying to find if there was like a compilation of all of them. I could not find a physical media version with all 3 of them. The Bride of Re-Animator one is kind of hard to find cheap because they did release, I don't know if it was an Arrow version or something, but it's not cheap anymore. But I did find it free on YouTube and I was able to watch it. Not being a big horror fan, I do like Re-Animator. I did kind of like this movie. It was funny. I like Jeffrey Combs, especially his run through Star Trek. Huge fan of his stuff that he did on Deep Space Nine. Kyle, give us some trivia on Bride of Re-Animator.
I can do that. I might have reanimated some of this trivia. I'm just saying. The liquid used for the reagent, as in the first film, was taken from glow sticks. That's what I experimented on with you the other day, Kevin. That's what I.
You're talking very low, Kyle. I can't hear you.
Sorry, no. That's what I used to get you going for the podcast. Was the stuff from glow sticks?
Yes. Tickled.
One of the original plots for the film involved Dan Kane being recruited to Washington, D.C. to help bring the deceased president of the United States back to life with the help of Herbert West. This was later
that would have been interesting.
Well, but it was later carried over to the unmade House of Re-Animator. Barbara Crampton, star of the first Re-Animator, turned down the role of the bride on advice from her agent, who convinced her that it was beneath her to have such a small role. Kathleen Kinmont was cast instead. Filmed in 1988, but sat on the shelf for 2 years. Then it received a minimal theatrical run and released on video, where a lot of these movies went in the early 1990s.
Yeah, it took off on home video, and it was one of those cult movies you had to watch if you like. And I think it got another run too once Jeffrey Combs took off on all of his several different characters he played throughout his Star Trek run. And so I do remember that. Lacey, I know you're not a big horror person. Did you see any of the Re-Animators, including this one?
I saw 20 minutes of the first one, and then they had the weird like dead necrophilia rape thing, which was like, nope. So that I just turned it off, and I had no interest to see the second one because no, thank you.
So yeah, so this movie is pretty graphic when it comes to like body parts and death and stuff like that. And but it's comically funny at times, which kind of takes the edge off a little bit if you're squeamish with that stuff. I just remember Fabiana in this film. She was a lot of vagina in the Austin Powers movie. A lot of vagina. But the actor David Gale in the first film, his head is taken off, but he's reanimated and his character is carrying his own head around for a while. What's really funny is that his character's head returns in this movie. And then unfortunately, the actor ended up passing away soon after the movie was done, because he passes away in 1990 or 91 in Elder General. But yeah, it's definitely a cult classic. Jeffrey Combs is creepy in what he does. And There's different versions of the original Re-Animator, and of course, I have the green edition one, which I really like, and a lot of special features. If you're into that, a lot of special features in these. Definitely a cult classic for the horror fans. My wife is a fan of the first one, if I remember correctly. So, all right, next we have I'm a fan of this one, guys. We have I Come in Peace, aka Dark Angel. Of course, this movie made $4.5 million in original theatrical release. You can find the full movie on Tubi and on YouTube as well. But I had, of course, get a Blu-ray version of it as well. A renegade cop is forced to work with an FBI agent in order to bring down a group of drug dealers with sinister plans. It stars Dolph Lundgren, Brian Benben, and Betsy Brantley. Now, I wanted to showcase the copy that I have here. Did you have a copy of this, Lacey?
Yes.
Okay. So we both have this Blu-ray copy. This is what version is this? I can't remember.
This is Shout Factory.
Okay, Shout Factory. Now, this movie in the theater or in the US is known as I Come in Peace. But what's really cool about the Blu-ray edition is it does come with a reversible, as known everywhere else as Dark Angel. And there's a picture of it there if you're watching the YouTube channel. Overseas, it is known as Dark Angel. But here in the US, it is known as I Come in Peace. And when you watch the Blu-ray version here, the title card actually says I Come in Peace. And the IMDb short description doesn't really do it justice. Basically, there's an alien that is killing people and using it for drug purposes. And then there's an alien bounty hunter after him. And we have the unlikely cop pairing, FBI and cop pairing of Dolph Lundgren and Brian Benben. Kyle, give us some trivia on this sci-fi masterpiece.
Okay, Dolph Lundgren delivers a roundhouse kick to one of the bad guys upon entering a building. This is a typical Dolph thing. The kick connected and knocked out the actor because the actor missed the mark. Matthias Hughes, who played the film's alien bad guy, performed all of his own stunts because there were no doubles who could match his size, 6'5". The project was initially titled Lethal Contact, as it was first written in 1984 as a spec script by Jonathan Tydor. The production, filming, and international title is Dark Angel and was released as such worldwide before it was changed to I Come in Peace for the late U.S. release because of two other existing films entitled The Dark Angel from 1925 and 1935. I think they could have probably kept the name Dark Angel.
Kyle, I think you giggled at me when I called this a sci-fi masterpiece. I might have been indulging a little bit on that, description.
Okay. So, Kevin, we haven't visited in a while in Culture Clash, but we have a segment called the VHS double feature where we take two movies that maybe kind of like, hey, there's something about them and you can put them on a VHS double feature. This is back in the day when I was recording a lot of movies off of HBO, and I had a VHS with two particular films on it. The 1987 version of movie of Wanted Dead or Alive with Rutger Hauer, and the other film on that VHS was I Come in Peace.
I would have stayed at your house overnight to watch that.
Hollywood so badly wanted to make Dolph something more, and they tried so hard with this movie, and it just couldn't happen for numerous reasons. Of course, this is around the time too. Dolph did a certain podcaster's favorite version of a Marvel Comics character as well.
Yes, he 1989 he did Punisher, and Adam and I are big fans of that version. I think you like that version as well, Kyle. Lacey, are you a fan of that version of Punisher?
I like all the Punishers, actually. I would love to have seen all three of them in a film together. Like, if we're doing multiverse stuff, I feel like that's not off the table. I do feel like that is still on the table.
Well, it's possible. Well, obviously, I think that Dolph Lundgren was just, they were trying to make him something bigger than he eventually became. But there's something quirky about this film that I really like. I love the villain in this, played by Matthias Hughes, and it's rated R for a reason. And it's got a short running time, which is nice. And also too, the Blu-ray has interviews with the director and Dolph Lundgren and Brian Benben. They talk about the making of this film, which is a fun watch as well. Lacey, what are your thoughts? I Come in Peace, aka Dark Angel?
Okay, so this movie did not have to be a science fiction movie. It could have been a movie about a cop who was going after drug dealers, which it was for 74% of the movie. Okay, 74% of the movie is bad guys, drugs, guns, heroin, money, blah, blah, right, Okay. And then I feel like somebody was like, it's missing something. Wait a minute, let's get a young pro basketball player and an Olympian and give them like crazy like makeup, and they'll be drug dealers from another planet who decided to use the Earth as their neutral ground. It's the weirdest situation. I mean, an actual police officer is trying to catch drug dealers before he realizes that there's also another drug dealer that's from an alien planet, and that drug dealer also has a bounty hunter after him, or a police officer after him, an alien police. So it's like this weird, like double kind of thing. And the main thing that this kind of got nostalgic for me is the disc that they use for the murder. Okay,
the killing disc. Yeah, it's basically a CD that cuts people's throats and heads off. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if you can see this with the thing, but with the video, but this is something that sat on my grandfather's desk for like 50 years. Okay, it's a CD shape, right? But it's got like a little knot on the back, so you're supposed to be able to like spin it, and it creates a little
prism,
like prisms. Yeah. And so that's what it reminded me of, and I was like, oh man.
For many, you got me excited. I thought that was what the Blu-ray was doubling as.
No, but I thought I saw it the other night, and I was like, man, I'm gonna have to go through a box.
Kyle's really wants to say something. Go, Kyle.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that, with a few tweaks here and there and a few adjustments, there's an alternate universe where this is the script for Predator 2.
You're not wrong.
I see where you're going at, because the way they find this disc at one of the crime scenes is where they find that projectile in Predator 2 when they're searching the drug den, or the Jamaicans or whatever that just got murdered by So
the alien drug dealer is just a predator.
Pretty much. Yeah. I actually liked the camaraderie, or at first they weren't, but I liked Brian Benben with Dolph Lundgren, and Brian Benben wasn't a thing at the time until he starts doing Dream On soon after on HBO.
Which excuse me for interrupting, but I know how much you love Dream On, Kevin, and for the first time ever, Dream On is available streaming on the Roku channel.
It is. Oh, don't you tease me, Kyle. Don't you tease me.
That's one of mine too. I've been looking
at season 1 and 2 used on DVD on eBay for like the longest time, and wondering if I should pull the trigger or not. So, but anyway, Kyle, what do you think of this one? Well, obviously you liked it enough to have it a double feature.
It's one of those films. It's a little bit of a cheesy sci-fi film. Come on, it is Dolph Lundgren.
Of course it is.
But it's one of those sci-fi films that you can watch and fun and appreciate what they were trying to do with it, and just kind of turn off your brain for it's one of those films that they were smart and they didn't make it too long.
I think Adam covered it on one of his early Lethal Mullet episodes. I think
he did.
Nice.
He did. But it's a great time. It's one of those films that's a time capsule film. It represents the time it came out and the time it was filmed. And I think that if you're going to say, okay, there was a point where we were making a lot of cheesy B-movie type science fiction films, but putting them out as mainstream films, this is one of those cases.
So, Lacey, you went into a lot of exposition about the setup and all that. You didn't actually say if you liked it. Did you like it?
Oh, yeah, I totally dug it.
Okay.
It's one of those movies that it's bad. It's so bad. Well, it's not bad. It's of its time. Okay,
it's cheesy and good fun.
Yes, and I think that there's, he's got a couple of one-liners, which in the interview he very clearly said these are Arnold Schwarzenegger one-liners, and they tried to get me to, But now keep in mind, this is a guy who he has a PhD in like chemistry and physics. Like this is
you are referring to Dolph Lundgren, not Brian Benben.
Yeah, he's. He kind of got into acting kind of just because he had been boxing and all that kind of stuff. And so with the Rocky stuff and he just enjoyed it. And so all of a sudden he was like, well, I could do this. That's cool.
I love the behind the scenes interview with these guys
Yeah.
talking about it, and they seem to really enjoy doing this movie. And I remember Brian Benman was saying that he had to put lifts in his shoes just to kind of somewhat get up to his height, even though he never does, which is kind of funny.
Lifts.
Yeah.
4-inch lifts. He's still a head shorter than Dolph.
Yeah, I think he went to the Tom Cruise store. So yeah. All right, guys, that wraps up this month of Time Warp, January 1990. I think this was a good collection of films to start off 1990. It kind of gives you a taste of what's to come. But I have a fun new question I'm going to ask you guys at the end of each of these episodes. And if you're listening to this and watching this, please play along with us here. So these movies were released in 1990, but filmed in 1989 or earlier. I would like you guys tell me which one of these films felt like they're still stuck in the 80s and which one of these films felt like it's an actual 90s film. Kyle, I want to start with you.
As far as stuck in the 80s, there's two. Bride of Re-Animator and I Come in Peace. Those are 80 films. And I think there's two representative of the 90s. I think Tremors, because I think that was the start of a change of certain aspects in film, and Internal Affairs. It felt like, okay, it still had a little bit 80s vibe, but it really did have aspects of it with the good guy being on the edge of darkness, and just everything with the Richard Gere of it. It feels like it was the start of something in the 90s as well.
Yeah. Lacey, what about you? Which felt like it's still in the 80s and which feels like it's in the 90s?
I think that I'm going to agree. I Come in Peace is definitely like still in the 80s, right? Like I definitely agree with that. I will say, I think Ski Patrol is also in the 80s. Just that little, because I mean, let's face it, all of these were, I mean, if they're released in January of 90, they were all filmed in the 80s.
That's my point. But what I'm wondering is,
I think
like,
Ski Patrol
does some of these actually feel like ahead of their time in the 90s?
Yeah,
as well as what feels like it's still in the 80s.
Right. I think that Ski Patrol definitely, with like the hair and the shoulder pads and all the, and like just so much bright. I mean, the ski outfits and stuff. Yeah, definitely that one's still stuck in the 80s. As far as 90s, I think that Tremors would definitely be kind of a turnover. Maybe even the Treasure Island. I know that it was filmed as it's a period piece, but I think that just the cinematography of it is showing some technological upgrades.
So I'm actually going to push back on Ski Patrol because of all of the bright outfits they were wearing. That was really early 90s. That's when it was starting to really become a fashion thing, the bright neon stuff. Okay. So that one felt, and also too, the fact that it was a safe comedy, that is all 90s there for me. But Kyle, you're spot on. Internal Affairs, it says 90s written all over it. This is one of those films that, like, this is the type of gritty movie, psychological thriller, nasty that you're going to get in the 90s, which we got a lot of. That one definitely feels like it's like 90s. And for me, Dark Angel is such an 80s buddy cop movie. That one feels like it's stuck there and it just hung around. What's funny about Henry of a Portrait Killer, the way that it was filmed, it feels like it could have been a 90s film, to be honest with you, even though it was done in 86, just because of the I don't know, just the way that it was filmed, and and it was more of a character piece, and I don't know, it's just interesting. But yeah, Internal Affairs definitely 90s. I Come in Peace, Dark Angels definitely 80s. So yeah. All right, any final thoughts on this first month of 90s films, Lacey?
I think this is a solid lead-in to 1990. Between I mean, we talked about 10 movies that came out. I think that's a solid, and I've seen, I think, almost all of them. The only two that I didn't watch were Dead Again or Dead something, whatever, the Bill Paxton, the double bill, right? And then Re-Animator.
Brain Dead, yep.
Yeah.
And what was the other one?
Bride of Re-Animator. Right. So I think this is a good, solid start to our exploration of 1990. Yeah.
Kyle?
It's going to be interesting as we do this time warp throughout this year, because you're going to start seeing the transition as we get towards the end of the films in 1990, where early on we're going to see a lot of films with a lot more 80s sensibility. And I think you see that in many of these films, and even the films that we talk about feel like they were starting to turn in the 1990s. They still have some of those 80s sensibilities in them. But I think it's also makes why we're going to 1990 is such a great year for films is because we are in a transition year. We're going from a lot of the sensibilities and over the topness of the 80s to a very different view in the 1990s. And I think the films of 1990 are really going to show that early progression of that. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun with this year of Time Warp.
Yeah. This was fun to dive into and start the notes on and just kind of see how things were starting to change and the switch from the 80s to the 90s. And that's why it's going to be fun to be asking that question after each show is which one of these films starting to feel like it's 90s and it's stuck in the 80s. So, but we'll give a little tease for the next group of films we have here, guys. We've got a lot of interesting ones. We have China O'Brien. We got Flashback, Heart Condition, Hard to Kill, Loose Cannons, Courage Mountain, Madhouse, Nightbreed, Revenge, The Witches, La Femme Nikita, Blood of Heroes, a.k.a. Salute of the Jugger, another film that has two names. Rockula is one I just watched recently. I can't wait to talk about that. Lacey, you're holding up China O'Brien 4K double feature and La Femme Nikita. I also got my La Femme Nikita, and thanks to you, Lacey, I turned my La Femme Nikita into a DVD Blu-ray edition because of those new Blu-ray cases that I got.
Nice.
I upgraded.
Same.
Also, I got my little nice. Look at that. Look at that.
Same. Yeah.
Also got the Hard to Kill, the follow-up, of course, to Steven Seagal's Above the Law.
And one of those evil DVD cases, Kevin.
Yes, the cardboard. Oh God, I hate these. And I have not seen Nightbreed. I got the Blu-ray director's cut. I'm looking forward to diving into. So yeah, there we go. We got some fun ones coming, and also all of the TV and other pop culture that is wrapped around of February of 1990. We got some good stuff to talk about here. But let's go ahead and wrap things up here, guys. This is the Fandom Podcast Network, of course, and if you're watching this, thank you very much. Give us a like and a subscribe, share us out. We appreciate that. Give us comments down below. Also, if you're listening to this podcast, thank you for downloading it. We appreciate you. Fandom Podcast Network, of course, is on YouTube. Our master feed for audio podcast is fpnet.podbean.com. The Fandom Podcast Network is on all your favorite podcast catchers, including Apple Podcasts. We're also on Facebook. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram, X, and of course, now we are also on Blue Sky. My name is Kevin. I am on X, Instagram, Threads, Discord, and Letterboxd at Spartan_Phoenix, and on Blue Sky at Spartan Phoenix. Kyle, where can we find you?
Well, first of all, I just want to make very clear I am the Val of this podcast, Kevin, which makes you the Fred Ward of this podcast, which means at the truth of it all, Lacey's the true brains of the podcast.
I think I'm the graboid.
Yeah.
Like I said, the true brains of the podcast. But no, you can find me, of course, all over Facebook, all over the great different pages for the Fandom Podcast Network. You can find me on Twitter and on Blue Sky at AKyleW. You can find me on Threads and Instagram at AKyleFandom. And you can find me late for the bus.
Lacey, how can we find you?
I am Lacey Plants. I am Lacey Pants in all the places, with the exception of Instagram, where I am the Lacey Pants. So yeah, you're talking Facebook, X, Threads, Instagram is the
Discord,
Blue Sky, and don't forget Letterboxd.
Yes, Letterboxd. Yes. Give us a shout out on TeePublic. Go to TeePublic and search for Fandom Podcast Network. You can get logos of all of our shows on the network, including Time Warp. I'm wearing my Time Warp t-shirt right now. We get a little kickback every time you purchase one of those shows. Keeps the lights on here in the offices. So make sure you check that. What's that?
I said Mr. Fusion is not cheap.
This is true. Yeah. You can get hats and mugs and wall art and pillows and stuff. So make sure you guys do that. This is, of course, is Time Warp, the Fandom Flashback Show. We, of course, are now celebrating the year of 1990, celebrating its 30th anniversary. Lacey, thank you so much. Kyle, thank you guys so much. Appreciate you. We hope you've enjoyed Time Warp 1990 January and all the movies and pop culture. Until next time. We will see you back in time.